Are you tired of Googling common interview questions only to be bombarded with long, inconsistent lists that give no real insight or reasoning to why those are the most common questions? I get it. It's super frustrating trying to sift through all that noise and figure out which advice is actually helpful. So, in this video, we're laser focused on behavioral questions and specifically the ones that you'll most likely face in a job interview. So, I'm going to show you two smart approaches that will cover about 80, if not 90% of all the behavioral questions you're likely to encounter. Now, of course, no video or article can guarantee what you'll be asked, but with the right prep strategy, you can walk into your interview feeling confident and ready. So, we're going to start by diving into the top 10 generic areas that you definitely want to be ready for, complete with sample questions. And then, really simply, a minute or less, I'll show you how to use large language models like ChatGPT to create role specific questions, and this will cover nearly all the potential behavioral questions you will be asked in a job interview for the specific position you're interviewing for. So let's jump in and make sure you're prepared. So, starting with the 10 more generic areas, I'll reference the category, highlight the overall focus area, and then provide 2 to 3 sample questions to get you prepared for your job interview. So, area one, we always have to be ready for the conflict and failure questions. These are kind of the negative experience questions. So, the focus is how you handle difficult situations, learn from mistakes, and manage conflict. So, some example questions might be: tell me about a time you had a conflict at work. How'd you resolve it? Describe a situation where you had to work with a difficult colleague or team member. How did you manage that relationship? Or tell me about a time you made a mistake. How did you handle it and what did you learn? Item two is accomplishment based. So this could be accomplishments in regards to goals, projects, initiatives, etc. And really, the focus is your ability to highlight your successes, achievements, and how you reached your goals. So, a couple of example questions would be: give me an example of a goal you set and how you achieved it. Tell me about a project you led. How did you organize and motivate your team? Or can you give me an example of a time you went above and beyond to achieve something at work? Area three, problem solving and decision making. So, of course, the focus is your ability to analyze situations, solve problems, and make decisions, and sometimes make decisions with limited information. So, a couple of example questions: tell me about a time when you faced a significant challenge at work. How did you handle it? And describe a time when you had to make a decision with limited information. How did you deal with it, and what were the results? Fourth is adaptability and flexibility. So we're really focusing in these answers on how we handle changes and adjust to evolving situations. So, a couple of example questions: can you give an example of a time when you had to adapt to a major change at work? Or tell me about a time when you had to meet a tight deadline. How did you ensure that the project, program, or initiative achieved its success? Fifth, leadership and teamwork. Leadership and teamwork is definitely going to come up. And so the focus is really collaboration skills, and that could be managing teams, working within teams to achieve great results. Example questions: tell me about a project you led. How did you organize and motivate your team? Describe a situation where you worked with a team to achieve a larger goal. What was your role and what were the results? Communication and influence. And obviously, communication is all a big part of this, but it's going to focus really on persuasion, influencing others, and effectively communicating your thoughts and ideas. Example questions might be: tell me about a time when you had to persuade others to follow your idea and or plan. How did you approach it? Another one could be: describe a time when you had to communicate a difficult or complex idea to someone. How did you make sure they understood what you needed? 7, initiative and proactivity. So this is just your ability to take initiative, proactively solve problems or challenges, and absolutely go above and beyond. You might get questions like, can you give me an example of a time when you went above and beyond to achieve something at work? Or tell me about a time when you took initiative to improve a process or strategy to solve a problem. Item 8, learning and growth. This is truly focused in on our examples for self improvement. So, how did you learn from experiences, both negative and positive, and just achieve getting through these challenge areas? So, a question you might get is, tell me about a decision you made in the last year or two that you would change if you could, or describe a time when you received constructive feedback. How did you use this feedback to improve? 9, customer and stakeholder focus. How you handle relationships with those critical internal stakeholders and then sometimes external client and customers. So, example questions. Can you give an example of a time when you had to manage a difficult client or stakeholder? How did you handle it? Tell me about a time when you went out of your way to meet the needs or exceed the needs of a customer or critical stakeholder. The last one is ethical judgment and integrity. So, how do you handle ethical challenges, dilemmas, or situations that require you to have strong integrity? So, a question might be, describe a time when you faced an ethical dilemma at work and how did you resolve it? Tell me about a decision that you had to make that was difficult and unpopular, and what were the results? If you want to practice any of these specific questions, I've pasted them into the YouTube description below. Now, let's immediately flip the coin and quickly teach you how to get more role specific questions. And this really couldn't be more straightforward. I simply want you to take the job description of the role you're interviewing for or a role that you're interested in interviewing for and copy and paste that job description into your favorite large language model. So that could be ChatGPT, Claude, Llama, Gemini, etc. And after pasting that in, simply ask the tool to create behavioral questions based on the job description. Then, once you run out of questions, go back into that specific thread and ask for more different questions, behavioral questions, based on the job description. And that second step is literally that easy. And now you will never, ever run out of role specific behavioral practice questions. And that's it. And now I feel as though I've introduced and you've got a solid understanding of what are some more generic areas, but then how do we also tailor and find questions that are specific to the role? With these strategies in hand, you're covering 80 to 90% of what you're likely to face in a job interview for a specific role. I just want you to remember preparation is the game changer. It's what separates the candidates who stand out from those who don't and those who ultimately land the job. If you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell for more interview tips and strategies. And as always, thanks for watching and good luck in your next interview.